Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farmer, the podcast. This is your host, JC Young, and today's topic of discussion is this: financial integrity. Now, when I say those two words to you, you are hearing them on this podcast right now. When I say the words financial integrity, what does that truly mean to you? Now, for some of you, I literally want you to think on this for a little bit, but I'm going to tell you a story about what financial integrity isn't. And it's a very simple story. And all we have to do is honestly look at the U.S. government. So as I'm sitting here recording this podcast in front of you right now, I'm looking at the total U.S. national debt of $28 trillion, the negative revenue we have of $3.2 trillion per year. Now, when we think about financial integrity, what would that describe? Well, if we look at the meaning of integrity, it means doing things the right way, doing things the honest way, and acting out of integrity, right? Now, when we add the word financial to the front of the end there, then all it simply means is you are being responsible and acting the right way when it comes to your finances. Now, when we look at the U.S. government, for example, and I'm going to relate this to farmers or ranchers in just a second, don't worry. But when we look at the U.S. government, for example, are they acting in a way of integrity when they're spending $6.7 trillion, but the total revenue they're actually generating is only 3.4, right? That's where I get the negative $3.2 trillion budget deficit that we are currently running. Now, how is this similar to business owners today? Well, the funny thing is that when a lot of our members come to Legacy Farmer, they've been acting out of financial integrity, meaning that, and what I mean by that is they have not been acting in a way that it would be described as financial integrity. And it's not completely their fault. It is a majority of it. But the thing is when we get into economies like we have right now, everybody's really pumped right now because commodity prices are going up and things are, this year is actually looking pretty good. And the problem is that a lot of business owners, including banks, I want to include them in there as well. So business owners and banks will start making decisions based on greed. And all logical financial education and knowledge and decisions will ultimately go out the window. And this could happen for a lot of people back in 2012, 2013, 2014, when prices really started to take off. And it may have been before that. Don't quote me on the years. It's crazy to think that was already 9-10 years ago when we had those massive wheat prices and corn prices and everything like that. But the thing is back then, guys, we saw so many people make so much money on the upside, right? Riding the wave up, yet they lost so much more money on the way back down. We saw banks financing hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in real estate purchases and everything across the board because they had access to the money very cheaply from the Fed, and they were able to just go out and lock in these long-term fixed rate notes. They were making decisions based off of everybody's net worth and the equity they had in their balance sheet. But the equity was something called unearned equity. Okay, now unearned equity is when you describe that, all you're doing is taking an asset on your balance sheet from year to year, let's say from 2020 to 2021. We're talking December 31st of 2020, December 31st of 2021. What unearned equity means is that you are taking the value of your real estate from 2020 and you are increasing it to what you think it might be worth in 2021. The problem is that gives you this growth that wasn't actually realized. Okay, and what do I mean by that? If you have growth on your balance sheet because your cash in your accounts increased, and that's the only thing you changed on your balance sheet from year to year, that's earned. That's earned income. That's earned equity. Your equity will increase because the cash in your accounts went up. Versus if I just magically inflate the number of the real estate and increase it because everybody else's real estate numbers are going up. Well, I'm sorry, but that's a deceptive feature of balance sheets, and that's a deceptive way that a lot of people are running their businesses today. And the thing is, guys, that's the definition of not financial integrity. I don't even know what the opposite word of integrity would be in this example here, but it's just the way that the government, for example, has been operating for a long time. And for a lot of our members, when they first come into Legacy Farmer, they haven't been acting in integrity with their finances. They've had a bunch of holes and a bunch of bleeders, and they don't know where the money's going. And there's just this gray area across their finances, and there's so many leaks inside of their operation. And the thing is, this is a very negative thing. But once we come in and we start plugging those leaks, we realize that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, for some of them, millions of dollars have leaked through the cracks of their operation over the past several years. And some of our members, guys, they come in and they haven't been tracking their numbers for decades. They really haven't, and not at the level of detail that we actually require them to inside of Legacy Farmer. And a lot of you, you're thinking, well, Jason, I have a pretty good idea about your numbers. Well, do you really? Do you really? If I asked you for a detailed report today, could you give me the exact breakdown on your income, on all of your income for the year, your projections for the year, what the bank's looking at, overall balance sheets and everything? Could you literally go do that today and then explain everything to me on there? Most of you, some of you can, and guarantee you have no problems when it comes to finances. Your operation is most likely extremely profitable and you're doing great. That's awesome. This message isn't for you though. This message is not for you. This message is for those of you, when you look at your finances, you avoid them because you're scared to actually dig into them and actually figure out what the real numbers are because you're afraid of the story that it will tell. You fear the numbers deep, deep down. And a lot of our members, when they first come in, this is a fear that they all have because you're going to get exposed, right? But the thing is though, when we figure out and we plug the holes when it comes to financially, just exposing the problems financially, when we discover those things, that's one of the greatest blessings, guys, that we're going to receive in life, because the only way to actually move forward and fix problems is you have to first expose them. And you have to first own up to them. And you have to take this step into this land where you call out your own BS and you have to step up and you have to man up and you have to face this stuff that you've been avoiding for years and years and years. And you have to go in and do some work so that you can actually build a sustainable and successful business long term. And the sad thing is we are going to continue to have 500 to 1,000 family farms go under every single year. This is going to continue to happen in the U.S. Yes, prices are going up this year. It may give some of the people that are on that breaking point period right now, it may make them last for another 1 or 2 or 3 years. Let's call it 5 years. But inevitably, they will fail because they do not know how to track the individual numbers inside of their operation, let alone use those numbers to make logical, non-emotional based decisions. And the thing is, you look at a majority of farmers and ranchers today, 95% of the decisions they make, emotional. It's so stupid, guys. Some of the conversations we have with some of the members in here and just the way of thinking that we've all been conditioned to believe in growing up. We make massive financial decisions based on the most illogical things possible. Now, one example I'm going to have here is one of our members told us about one of his neighbors. Cattle prices started rallying at the beginning of this year, 2021, a little bit. And we've seen a consistent rally up there. I think we've had some pullback right now. I'd have to pull up the charts and look. But one of his neighbors, they went ahead and put up a $2.5 million cattle facility at their operation. And they started building it in like April or something like that. But when cattle prices started going up, they started to make that decision to go into the bank and get the debt. And the bank, unfortunately, financed them to do this. Now, this member thought for a long time that, man, they just must have it figured out. And I'm like, okay, I get that, man, but you have to consider the type of decision that they just made here. Okay. Now, if you are a person that doesn't know your numbers and you go and do that, what you need to understand is that family right there, they went out and they got a loan for $2.5 million, okay, to put up this big cattle operation. And what the member was telling us is that he didn't think they were any better off than he was. Now, we don't know the truth of their numbers. So again, I don't have all the details here, but you need to understand the type of decision that they just made. Okay. If they truly made a decision based off of some higher prices right then and there, they could get cheap money from the bank because the banks are loaded up with money right now because the Fed funded them all and they're making 3 to 4% loans over 20 or 30 years. And just because you can get the money doesn't mean you should. But let's say this family did that and they made an illogical and emotional decision to go get a $2.5 million loan. What I need you to do is actually think about the decision that they just made. Now, was it one that was bred out of financial integrity? Probably not. The reason is because if you go get a $2.5 million loan based off of 2 months of prices going up in the cattle markets, and you're like, you can use that information to justify, yeah, let's just go get $2.5 million in loans just because it's cheap. You need to understand what was the long-term impacts of the decision they just made. We had a rally in prices for 2 to 3 months, and they just made a 20 to 30 year decision in that time frame. They just made a 20 to 30 year decision in that time frame because they're going to have to pay that loan back for 20 to 30 years now, $2.5 million. This is what I'm talking about, my friends. This is the type of crap that is going on everywhere. And this is what happens when you don't have your numbers structured, organized, and broken down in a way that you can go in and find the exact information you need to when you're faced with all these decisions throughout the year. Farmers and ranchers are faced with thousands of decisions throughout the year. Massive financial decisions. There is no small mistakes on the farm operation. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you have heard me say this. There are no small mistakes inside of running a farm operation or an ag business. But yet, we are shooting from the hip with the majority of the financial decisions simply because a majority of farmers and ranchers have not been shown how to structure and organize the numbers in a simple way that makes sense to them. Now, we're taking it multiple steps further than that, but when members come into our network, that is the first thing that we are working on. That is the first thing that we are getting structured and organized, and then I am showing them how to take back leverage and control from the bank, decrease interest rates, save massive amounts on interest, and then we're moving on about the business from there, right? We go through entity structure and design, we go over legacy and estate planning, we just go over everything inside a legacy farmer because of this type of crap that's going on inside of the industry. People not acting out of financial integrity. And again, the perfect example, U.S. government. And a majority of people right now inside of the U.S., I would venture to say, do not trust the U.S. government as far as they can throw them. Right? Our dollars, the dollars that you have in your bank account right now, are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Do you really believe that? Probably not. And so what you need to do, my friends, is look at your operation and your business. And if you are in any way running it similar to the way that the government is running theirs, then you need to make some massive changes. What I mean by that is the government never is acting out of financial integrity. They are never positive per year. They're never profitable. That is the worst business. And they continue to print money just because they can, kind of like going to the bank and getting cheap money just because you can, when they're not actually crunching the numbers and seeing if it's going to fix the real problem. And so there are a majority of business owners inside of the ag industry that are running their business the same way as the government. And at some point, my friend, you have to stop. You have to face the problems. You have to fight. You have to face the lack of financial integrity that you have inside of your operation. You have to get this stuff organized, and you have to make some hard decisions, and you have to do what a majority of people are unwilling to do. And those people that are unwilling to do it, they will fail. They will inevitably fail. And I'm not trying to have this be a depressed conversation or a depressed podcast, but you just need to know the reality of the game that you're playing in. And I'm trying to speak to you directly because I know you're listening to this, and some of you listen to this. This is hitting home with you because you know you have feared the numbers for a long time. And I'm telling you, you do not have to do that. And the only way to actually get to where you want to go is you first have to expose the problems in the numbers. You have to go through and you have to organize them, and then you have to face them, and then you have to start making hard decisions. And that's a hard road to walk, and that's a difficult journey. But that's why we are here. That's why all of our members are inside of Legacy Farmer. That's why all of them are walking this journey together. So my friend, you don't have to do it alone. I just want you to know that. But at the end of the day, if Legacy Farmer and what we do here is not a fit for you, just get your numbers organized, please. Please. Because the biggest people, it's kind of like the government right now. They are spending in a completely immature way, right? They are not taking care of their finances at all. They're spending a ton more money than what they're actually bringing in as far as revenue. And that is completely irresponsible, right? We can all agree. And who's going to pay the price for that? Taxpayers. We will. I mean, I don't know how else they're going to do it. They can continue printing money for forever into the future, and then we'll have hyperinflation and all these other things that can come into effect at that time. But ultimately, the taxpayers, the hardworking people of this country, are going to pay for their inability to face the hard reality, make some difficult decisions, and make some changes that are actually going to push the economy in this country forward. No different than you, my friend. If you've been avoiding these things, the people that are going to pay the price, your family. It's your family, and it is. It's true. It's the same thing for me. When I left the banking industry, or actually when I was sitting in the bank, I was not happy with where I was at. I wanted to provide my family with a lot more than what I was doing. And I wanted to succeed for them, and I wanted to do things the right way, and I wanted to learn and grow and expand and just become successful and do things the right way and earn my way to the top. That's what I wanted to do. And a majority of our members, when they come in, that's where we're taking them, and that's what we're doing, because they understand finally at this point in their life, they're like, the people that are going to pay for my mistakes and my lack of action in these areas that I've been avoiding because I fear the numbers, or I just don't know what I'm doing and I'm afraid to ask for help, or whatever it is, they understood at that time that the people that are going to pay the ultimate price is their family. And finally, the pain of knowing that provoked them to take action, provoke them to do what is required to go and solve the freaking problems and build an operation that's successful and acts out of financial integrity, is super, super solid financially. And that's where we all want to get to. So my friends, out of this episode today, if you take anything from this, start facing the hard truth inside of your operation or your business. Start facing where you're at financially. Start looking at the numbers. I don't care if you come into Legacy Farmer or not, become a student of your numbers, because otherwise you will fail inevitably. And the people that know their numbers like the back of their hand, they get the best interest rates, they're structured and organized, they have money to pay their taxes every year, they actually get to pay taxes every year, which honestly is a good thing, because it means you have a profitable business, right? If you're with an accountant that's just trying to have you show losses every year, well, that's a different side of the story there. And there's different strategies around that. But ultimately, I just want you guys to all start acting out of integrity when it comes to your financial position. And I guarantee you, yes, it's going to be difficult in the beginning. It's going to be really difficult. But 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, you are going to be so grateful that you did this, and you are going to be able to train and educate your kids to take over your operation, and you are going to be able to train them the right way to continue your operation and acting out of financial integrity and just building a super solid, sustainable legacy for the next generation. So my friends, that is my ramble for today. Hopefully, again, you take some action from this, and that's all I got, guys. So hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.